Okay. All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for this DataVision class on protecting your personal information online. My name is Connor, and with me tonight is Todd Burning, who will be helping to answer questions and provide additional resources. So, just a couple things before we get started. You might have seen that we are recording this class today. So the video replay is going to be available to watch online on the DataVision YouTube channel with that link there. And then if you have any questions during the meeting today, feel free to use that chat button there on the toolbar to put any questions or comments that you have. And if you're on a laptop or a computer and you don't see that little toolbar that looks just like this on my screen here, just kind of wiggle your mouse around a little bit and it should pop up for you. And if you're on a tablet or even a smartphone, just tap your finger on the screen and that toolbar should pop up as well, where you can put questions in the chat if you may have them. All right. And with that, let's get started and talk about the best ways to protect your personal information. So, scammers are getting smarter. New computer technology and software make it easier to crack passwords than ever. Companies constantly face the threat of data breaches, exposing the personal information of their customers and their employees. More and more of our daily lives take place in a virtual world. Medical and financial documents are often kept in cloud storage accounts, for example. Credit card and banking information is saved across multiple services and websites sometimes, and refrigerators can now even send an alert to your phone to let you know that you're low on milk, right? So it's more important than ever to make sure you're taking the necessary precautions to safeguard your personal information online. So online scams become more prevalent every year. In the United States, 1 in 10 adults falls victim to a scam or fraud every year. And in 2020, just a couple of years ago, consumers reported losing more than $3.3 billion to fraud. And that's going to continue to rise every year because this is a big industry and scammers are constantly looking for new ways and targeting more people every year. The most common ways that folks get scammed are through phishing attempts, which we'll talk about in a moment, or non-payment scams, hoping to get you to give up your banking information. Still, we often think that a hacked email account, a compromised online banking account password, or a computer virus attack couldn't happen to us, when in reality, it very much can and does happen to us. Just as an example here, most of us have heard stories of successful malware or ransomware attacks on school districts, city governments, and even legendary local restaurant chain McMenamins. Last year, it was announced that McMenamins had suffered an attack on their online security, and the records of up to 30,000 current and former employees were breached. The hackers potentially gained access to social security numbers, phone numbers, email addresses, birth dates, income info, and more. And this is a pretty big company with resources for pretty high level security. Another pretty recent example, the city government of Joplin, Missouri was hit with a ransomware attack that made its way into their system. They actually had to resort to an insurance payout of $320,000 to an unknown person after their computer system was shut down and to prevent any sensitive information obtained in that breach from being exposed. So these sorts of attacks are becoming more common, and the personal information of both businesses and individuals can be put at risk whenever data breaches like this happen. Now, of course, these are some extreme examples of malicious attacks on specific organizations, and they took the necessary steps to right the ship by beefing up security and providing tools to folks whose information may have been exposed. But the fact remains that these sorts of attacks are becoming more common, and the personal information of folks can become exposed if it happens. So, what can you do about it? How can you best safeguard your most important info, your email passwords, your bank account logins, social security number, your address? Today, we're going to talk about these 5 ways to lock down your online security. Number 1, we're going to watch out for phishing emails and text messages. We're going to create longer and more complex passwords. We are going to use a password manager to store logins. We're going to use two-factor or multi-factor authentication where available. And then we're going to be a little bit more aware of some social media scams that are out there. All right, but before we jump into the serious stuff, let's take a look real quick at what one comedian decided to do to combat the influx of scam emails that he'd been receiving.
Guys, I'll tell you what, any day is a good day. Any day is a good day if you receive an email that begins like this. I am Winnie Mandela, the second wife of Nelson Mandela, the former South African president. I was like, oh, that Winnie Mandela. I know so many. I need to transfer $45 million out of the country because of my husband Nelson's health condition. Let that sink in. She sent me this, which is hysterical. And this looks fairly legitimate. This is a letter of authorization, but to be honest, if there's nothing written on it, it's just a shape. I said, Winnie, I'm really sorry to hear of this. Given that Nelson died 3 months ago, I describe his health condition as... That's the worst health condition you can have, not being alive. She said, kindly comply with my banker's instructions. One love. I said, of course, no woman, no cry. She said, my banker would need transfer of $3,000. One love. I said, no problemo. I shot the sheriff. Thank you. Guys.
All right, so all jokes aside, it isn't necessarily the best idea to respond to spam messages like this, no matter how ridiculous they are, even if you want to just mess with the spammer and get some payback or have a little bit of fun like this comedian did. If you respond, it can actually verify to the spammer that your email address is valid and monitored and that it's ready to be targeted with more spam attacks. And it can even be transferred or sold to other scammers as well. All right, so first thing to look out for is these types of phishing scams. So these are fraudulent messages that appear to come from reputable companies or organizations that attempt to lure you in to giving up your information, whether it's your passwords, your credit card info, your home address, phone number, birthday, any sort of information. So let's talk a little bit about how to identify phishing messages and what to do if you receive one. So first, the age-old adage, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. As much as we'd all love for it to be real, that email that you got about a free Mediterranean cruise, if you just click here and enter in your info, that has a 99.99% chance of being a scam, right? Next thing. Stop and think about the message's legitimacy before you do anything. How likely is it that this message is real? If you get a message from a company or an organization saying that your payment wasn't received and that you need to click on this button in the email in order to make it right, but you know that you have autopay activated and your monthly payment always comes out every month, then you have solid reason to suspect that something is off about that message. Phishing attempts almost always try to get you to click on a button or a link or download an attachment. This usually allows the scammer to gain access to your personal information, either by downloading malware to your device that can track keystrokes and other things like that, or by taking you to a phony website to get you to enter in your information, like a password or a social security number, something like that. And then the last thing here is take a look at the email address and the sender name. Do you know who it's from? Are you expecting an email from them? Does the grammar or the tone of the message seem odd? A good majority of spam or phishing emails can be recognized if you stop and take a closer look. Some may be obvious, while others may be a little bit more well-crafted. However, there are things to look out for, which we will go over next. All right, so I actually received this email on the screen here recently. I've done my due diligence a bit by marking spam messages and phishing emails as such in my email client. So this one actually went to my junk box, but sometimes these sorts of messages can slip through email carriers' filters and make their way into your main inbox. So, can you tell what's wrong with this email? I'm going to give you just a few moments here to take a look at it and try and spot some red flags. And then you'll actually see a little poll pop up on your screen where you can give your answer to the questions. So, let's go over some of these red flags here. So this email had multiple red flags, the most obvious of which is right at the top there that this person or entity, or sorry, kind of just the overall tone of the message is that this person or entity wants to give me millions of dollars, right? And as much as I'd love for that to be true, it unfortunately just is not true. We can also see that the email address is unrelated to the sender name. That's your top red circle there. This is something to look out for because it's possible to imitate the sender name of someone that you know, like a work colleague or even a family member. There's also lots of odd or incorrect grammar throughout. This should also be an immediate red flag. There's also instructions at the bottom here to reply to a different email address rather than the one you received the message from in the first place. This is a red flag because it could validate to the scammer that your email is active and a good target for additional scams, or that your email could be added to other scammers' lists to target. And then finally, it creates a sense of urgency. Scammers don't want you to stop and think about the legitimacy of their message, right? They want to create a sense of anxiety by telling you that you have a limited amount of time to take advantage of their offer or change your password or whatever it may be. But in reality, if you take your time, you stop and you take a closer look, you'll be able to figure out their scheme. All right, let's take a look at another one here. See if you can spot what's wrong with this email saying that there's an issue with the American Express account. Give you just a moment, and then again, you'll see another poll pop up on your screen. Multiple red flags here again, right? So the email subject line again has grammatical issues in it. The email address doesn't match the sender name. The American Express logo over there is a little bit squeezed and distorted. And there's a big blue button in the middle of the email telling you to review your account information now, creating that sense of urgency. Where if you were to click on it, there's the potential where it would likely take you to some sort of website and ask for your login credentials or account number or something of the like to get you to give up that personal information. So nice job. Okay, so let's review what you should do if you receive a spam message or a phishing email. Number one, never click on a link or download an attachment from an unexpected or suspicious message. Uh, Companies and organizations will never ask you to click on a link in order to change your password, and they'll never come out of the blue and solicit that from you, right? Make sure to stop and think about the message's legitimacy again. Are you expecting a message like this? Does the request seem odd or suspicious? And make sure not to reply to the message. This could open the door for more scams in the future. And then finally, before deleting the message altogether, mark it as spam or junk or even phishing in your email clients. And I've got a couple of screenshots in my next slides here on how to do that in several different email services. So first up here in DataVision Webmail, if you have a DataVision hosted email, your email client may look a little bit like this. You can click on the spam button at the top of the screen when a message is highlighted to mark it as spam. So this step actually helps the email client to continuously learn about how to recognize these types of emails and work to prevent you from getting them in your inbox in the future. And then here's how to do the same thing in Outlook and Gmail accounts. So in the message itself, near the reply or the forward buttons, there will be little three dots like these ones right here. That's where you'll get a drop-down menu if you click on them. And then from there, you can mark the message as phishing in here or even as spam. So that's how you do it in Outlook or Gmail. All right, now on to everybody's favorite subject, passwords. So let's talk for just a moment how important it is to have strong, complex passwords. So here's a list of the most commonly used passwords in the United States in 2023. These are all, as you might guess, incredibly easy to hack for the average human guessing them, let alone a computer program that can actually guess billions of passwords at a time. Um, and that is a reality now. A record was actually recently just set for the rate at which a computer could guess password combinations. It clocked in at 100 billion combinations per second. This is known as a brute force attack, where computers guess passwords based on every combination of letters, numbers, and symbols. They'll start at the top with A, then AB, AC, AD, so on and so forth, until some easy passwords are inevitably cracked. So the longer and the more complicated the password, the longer it will take for it to be cracked. And that's really the key here. It's not necessarily a matter of if the password will be cracked, it's when it comes to these sorts of computer programs. So really the most important thing you can do is to make your password longer and more complex so as to delay it from being cracked for as long as possible. And we're going to get into some examples of some different passwords next. So let's take a look at a few different passwords to see if you can guess how long it'll take for a computer using this type of software to crack it. How long do you think it will take to crack this password on the screen? 30 seconds, maybe 5 minutes, maybe a couple years, maybe even instantly. This password is basically as weak as they come, and it will be cracked immediately. I would strongly advise not to use something this simple for any of your passwords. And just for reference, I am using a website called passwordmonster.com, where you can actually type in a password and it'll tell you how long it'll take for that password to be cracked. Okay, let's try another one here. How long will it take to crack this password? This one's going to take 15 minutes, 1 minute, 5 years, 45 seconds. What do you think? Okay, this one was a little trickier. It's about 17 minutes or so. And this one is interesting because it actually meets the requirements for many different accounts out there. So when you create a new account with a website, most have some general requirements for creating a password, like being 8 or more characters, having a mix of capital and lowercase letters, and throwing in some numbers and symbols. This one actually has all of those, but it'll still only last for just over 16 minutes in that sort of a brute force attack. All right, let's do one more here. How long do you think this password will last against a brute force attack? Is this one going to take 8 hours, a couple weeks, a few million years, a decade? How long will this one take? So as you can see here, this password is good to go for the foreseeable future, about 13 million years actually. This one uses a passphrase rather than a password. It incorporates capital letters and lowercase letters, and I've used a variety of symbols throughout. But really, if you take a look at it, all I did was kind of go down the line of symbols on my keyboard, and insert the next one down from left to right in between each word of my passphrase. So this is a good way to think about creating more complex passwords, is come up with maybe a sentence or a saying that you can remember, and then toss some symbols and numbers in between it to make it longer and more complex. This one is good for a very long time. Okay. All right. So then this brings me to my 3 main tips for creating those strong passwords. You want them to be longer and more complex. Shoot for a minimum of 15 characters with a mix of capital and lowercase letters, numbers, and symbols. Try creating a phrase rather than 1 or 2 words. And finally, try not to reuse your passwords on multiple websites, because if it gets hacked even once, it's possible for it to be hacked in other places as well. All right. But with those strong, complicated passwords comes the difficulty of remembering them, right? Thankfully, there are several useful services available to help keep your passwords and usernames secure, like LastPass or even 1Password. There's a ton of other services out there. And there's many that are built into internet browsers now, like Google Chrome has, and Microsoft Edge and different browsers have password managers built into them. and even mobile phones like an iPhone has Apple Keychain built into it as well. So there's different options out there for storing your passwords. Okay. And how these passwords work is they keep all of your account login information secure behind one super strong password locked away in what's called a vault. They're protected by some of the best encryption tools available, in addition to your 1 mega password. They can even automatically sign you into sites where your login information has been stored. So this way, you only need to remember your one super strong password, and then you have access to all your others, right? So with these, you literally come up with a 20, 30, 40 character long complex password like we talked about earlier. You can write it down on a piece of paper, keep it somewhere safe, or use a long phrase that you'll remember with symbols and numbers thrown in, and then you'll be golden. You just have that one password. And then additionally, these programs can auto-generate strong passwords for you when you create new accounts on websites or even change old passwords. And then they can automatically save them to that account's details in your password manager's vault. So the free version here of LastPass lets you store unlimited passwords, but you're only able to use it for one device type. So if you wanted to use your LastPass account for your computer and say a smartphone, you'd have to sign up for the premium tier. And then for 1Password, the other one that I mentioned, there isn't a free version, but when you sign up, you can use it on multiple devices. But like I said, there's lots of different other options out there. These are just a couple that I wanted to mention. So here's an example of what the LastPass vault looks like. You're able to add a variety of items like passwords, secure notes. You can even add in addresses, payment cards, bank accounts, and more in here. Then you can log into your vault and then view or edit any of your information. And one of the nice things about password managers is that they can often automatically log you into sites where you have your credentials saved in your vault. So they work as browser plugins like in Chrome, Firefox, Safari, or Microsoft Edge. And the image here on the screen shows what the LastPass extension right here looks like in the Google Chrome extensions toolbar. And for those unfamiliar with browser extensions, these are essentially just little shortcuts or helper tools that you can install into your browser, sort of like smartphone apps. For example, I've got my LastPass extension here as well as a couple of others as well. Okay. And then when you're ready to log into a site, when you're logged into LastPass and have the browser extension enabled, you'll see a little box in the credentials boxes as shown here, this little guy right there. If I click on it, a LastPass box will open up like this main one on the screen, where I can fill in those login credentials with my saved data, and then I'm all good to go. I'm logged into Netflix. And I didn't even have to type anything in. So it's a super useful tool. And you can also enable this on your smartphone as well. If you download the LastPass app, you log in and then let it autofill your passwords when using the web on your phone. Just keep in mind with some of these password managers, some of the features might be restricted to a premium paid account. So I mentioned that these password managers can even create strong randomized passwords for you and then save them to that account. So this is a screenshot of the password creation tool with LastPass with the different settings that you can set. This random password generated right here, I put it into Password Monster, the tool that we used earlier, and this one wouldn't be cracked for over 100 million years. And all I told it to do was do a mix of upper, lowercase characters and then put in numbers and symbols, and I made it 22 characters long. And then it's good for 100 million years. So it's a really nice tool to have. All right, so the next tip I want to talk about is using two-factor or multi-factor authentication. You may have encountered this before when trying to log into a website where after you enter your password, it then sends a code to your cell phone, your email account that you have to enter in order to fully log into your account. So this provides an extra layer of security in addition to just a password. It combines something that you know, your username and password, with something that you have, like a smartphone or a secondary email account, in order to verify the login. So while this extra step may be a little bit cumbersome or annoying at times, taking this extra time to safeguard your most sensitive accounts can really save you big time if a data breach were to ever happen, like those we mentioned at the beginning of the class, or if your login credentials ever got into the wrong hands. I would recommend using multi-factor authentication for your most sensitive accounts, mainly your email and your online banking accounts. And why do I say email? So your email um, can often be the gateway to scams. If someone gets a hold of your email password and can log into your account, think about it. They can then go and reset the passwords for your other accounts that use that email address. And then they can send out fraudulent messages under your name and do so much more. So, locking down your email and your online banking accounts with multi factor authentication is a great way to add some extra security for your most sensitive personal information. So this is generally what that process looks like. When you go to log into a site or an app, after you enter in your username or email and your password, you'll then be sent an additional code to your smartphone via text message or to another email account if you want to go that route. And then the screen you entered your email and password into won't move forward until you enter the correct code in. Oftentimes, they have a time limit where you have to do this by. So that's why this is a good idea to have set up. Even if someone were to get their hands on your bank account login info, for example, they wouldn't be able to fully log into the account because an additional piece of code is required to be entered in order to get forward into that account details screen, right? It's an extra step to that login process. So to set up multi-factor authentication, there will generally be a security option in your account settings. This is an example of what it looks like in the Google account settings. This is how to set it up for a Gmail account. Generally, you'll go into your settings and there should be some sort of option like security or sign-in options in the account settings. And then from here, this is the next step in Gmail. You can go down and where it says two-step verification, and then go through the process to turn it on. They'll have a step-by-step process for turning that on and getting that set up. You can see here that mine is active and it's linked with my cell phone number. So whenever I need to log into Gmail on a new device, or if I haven't logged in for a long time, it's going to prompt me to go through the two-step verification in order to log into my account. And then, like we talked about, this is just the confirmation right here. This adds an extra layer of security, keeps the bad guys out. So with this on, when you sign in, you'll need your password and a verification code. Sometimes different accounts will say, hey, don't ask me to do this again on this device, or don't ask me to do this again for a couple of weeks. Again, I would recommend maybe for your most sensitive accounts to take the option to make it do that every time so that you know that you've got the most security, especially with your online banking. Okay, now for our final online security tip, watch out for social media scams that are out there. These have become increasingly common in recent years as more social media platforms are created and more people use them. So while there are many different types of scams that pop up on social media apps and sites, if you just remember the tools that you've learned so far, you'll know what to look out for. So be aware of that suspicious language or scenarios or messages that you might receive, especially if you're not expecting them. Stop and think about the legitimacy of an offer or a message before taking any action or clicking on a link. And also, any publicly shared information on your social media pages could be used by scammers to try and gain access to your personal information or find a way into getting access to it. In addition, oversharing on social media could even provide real world vulnerabilities as well. So, just as an example, if you publicly share that you're going to be on vacation halfway across the world for a few weeks, that could let people know that you'll be away from home for a while and maybe open the door for theft or trespassing, things like that. This is an extreme example, of course, but it's still a good idea to maybe think about limiting how much you share about yourself on social media. Okay. We're going to talk about a couple examples of popular social media scams to watch out for. And first up, there's what's known as the grandparent scam. This is where a scammer poses as a relative and pretends to be in an emergency situation where they need you to send them money or give them help. So I just want to show you a quick video from the Federal Communications Commission here, or the Federal Trade Commission, excuse me, to show you what this might look like. Let's watch this real quick.
Granddad, it's me. An accident in Mexico. I'm in jail.
Jimmy, is that you?
Yeah, it's Jimmy. I need money for bail right now.
In jail?
You need to send money right now. Please don't tell anyone.
Scammers are tricky and can pretend to be anybody in any situation. They seem like the real deal. They play on your fears. The goal? To get you to act fast. Check out if they really are who they say they are, even if they sound like a loved one. Heard from an imposter? Report it at ftc.gov/imposters.
All right. So while that video demonstrates a potential scam over a phone call, this scam also commonly occurs in message form on social media as well. I've actually seen accounts become mimicked by scammers, where they'll use the same name and profile picture of someone's legitimate page, and then start messaging that person's contacts, pretending to be them, asking for money or perpetrating other scams. So again, just make sure to stop and think about the legitimacy of a message or a call before taking any action, and verify that the situation is real. You see what the man in the video did? He called someone else to verify if what he heard on the phone could be true. He found out that his grandson wasn't even in Mexico, so he knew right away that it was a scam. So, if possible, always try to verify with a third party or reach out to the person who sent you the message to ask them if it is legitimate. So, if you receive a message from a friend or a family member on Facebook or another social media platform that seems suspicious, you might think about calling or texting them to verify that and figure out what's going on. Here's another common way that your personal information can get hijacked. Those fun quizzes that you sometimes see on social media that can tell you your Disney princess name or which character you would be from the Harry Potter world. Those can sometimes be scam opportunities attempting to steal your personal information. Think about the types of questions that these types of quizzes ask. Why do they need to know which city you were born in, or the name of your first pet, or your grandmother's maiden name, or which street you grew up on? Those types of things are common account security questions that you sometimes have to answer in order to be able to log into your accounts. These quizzes can be a gateway to get you to reveal that information. Now, of course, not every single quiz out there is a scam, but again, when it comes to social media, it's a good idea to think about what sorts of information you freely give out. Okay. Here is another one that I actually see pretty often, especially on Instagram. This is the giveaway scam, where a fake account poses as a real one to hijack a legitimate giveaway that a company or a page you follow might be doing. So I see this from pages I follow on Instagram when they do giveaways for their products. Usually a page will have people comment on their post in order to enter the giveaway, and then the page will choose a random winner from those comments after a certain amount of time. Well, what sometimes happens is that imposter pages pop up pretending to be the account that's doing the giveaway. And then these fake accounts will message people telling them that they've won, but of course, there will be some sort of suspicious language telling them they need to give out a piece of their personal info, or they need to click on a link to accept their prize, or any number of those different kinds of shady tactics that scammers use that we've talked about today. So if you ever happen to be in this situation, check to make sure that any messages you receive are from the actual legitimate account that's running the giveaway. And then another giveaway or another tell here, make sure the giveaway has actually ended, right? So if you know it's not over for another 3 days, but you receive a message saying that you won just a couple hours in, that is a red flag. So again, really the best things that you can do is not to click on random links from people that you don't know or weren't expecting, and then stop and think about the legitimacy of a message, okay? All right, that does it for our tips to protect your personal information online. We thank you so much for joining us tonight. We hope you learned something and you stay safe out there when you're navigating all of these different things on the internet.